things went wrong aboard Titanic. Many believe we were ill-fated, doomed right from the start. I don't agree. A man makes his own fate. The mistakes leading to the Titanic disaster were simple, straightforward, and easily remedied, like so many things are with the benefit of hindsight. If I could go back, what would I change? What would I do differently? Where would I even begin? The eel thinks that rod's either food or a mate. Either way, he won't like me messing with it, so I shan't. This was Titanic's accelerator. It controlled the amount of coal stoked, and thus the amount of power sent to the turbines. Determining a ship's course is far from an exact science, but science does play its part. Currents, weather systems, and other fairly predictable impediments are accounted for as much as possible. Without a doubt, crossing so near Newfoundland was a concession made for the sake of time. A more southerly route would have presented far fewer hazards at the cost of a few additional hours of travel. The risk was deemed acceptable by those at a higher pay grade than I. This is the map we used to plot our initial course, and all subsequent course changes and corrections. I've collected all the course plotting pins. Now put them back where they were before Titanic sunk. Or rather, where they should have been. This is the map we used to plot. I could have made such a course change, but in all honesty, there was no predictive cause for it. Had we received a warning message by wireless, it would have been done without question. But there was no such message, and so we plowed ahead, full steam towards our collective fate. I've told you all I can. Enough gunk has called the surface of these gloves home that they could probably withstand a bite or two. Let's just move Snappy out of the way. No. A captain should know his ship well enough to see. It's missing. Absolutely. The eel thinks that you need to use. A captain should know. It's missing. There. Still fits. We shouldn't have been running full steam in waters we knew to be notorious for icebergs. That much is certain. Had we decreased our speed by half, even if nothing else had been changed, the iceberg impact would not have been likely to breach more than 1 or 2 bulkheads, and we could have stayed afloat for days. We wouldn't have lost a single person. We might not have even lost Titanic at all. This is how it goes. I've told you. At the time of Titanic's fateful voyage, the wireless radio was still considered a newfangled contraption. No sailor worth his salt relied on them much. They were an adjunct, not a necessity. This was short-sightedness on our part. The wireless transmitter and receiver aboard Titanic was not even owned by the White Star Line. It was owned by a private company, and it was their charge to serve the passengers, not the crew. When forced to choose between relaying a message about the stock market to an investor or a message about weather conditions, the missive to the passenger was always given. And so it was that we missed an important message in regard to icebergs in our direct. A recommended course change. You would think this message would have warranted some serious attention. This chute runs directly. Had we received that message, Titanic would have almost certainly made it to New York Harbor without incident. I cannot blame the Marconi operators. They were simply following their own orders. The system was to blame. And although the tragedy of Titanic was instrumental in fixing the very system that doomed her, it is the wish of every captain that such cautionary tales not be woven on their watch. So it goes. This chute runs to... I've told you all I can. Titanic's outer hull was comprised of thousands of sheets of riveted steel. It was quite literally a patchwork of metal. It sounds a little disconcerting, but this was the only method of shipbuilding on that scale available at the time. Had the rivets been hot-stamped, that is to say, had the steel that they were driven into been heated after they were stamped, the joints between plates wouldn't have been so susceptible to the cracks that allowed the ice to penetrate as deeply as it did. Just another simple step that could have saved hundreds of lives. Where they belong, but they need something substantial to keep them in place under the pressure. This seems like it should have been standard procedure. Titanic was separated into 15 watertight bulkheads, but the word watertight is a little misleading. They were really only watertight from bow to stern. The tops were open, like gigantic cups. Titanic could have remained afloat indefinitely with breaches in 4 of the 15. But even with 5 breaches, Titanic should have stayed afloat well into the next day. The real problem that night was one of location. The breaches occurred in the first 5 contiguous bulkheads at the front of the ship. This caused the bow of the ship to dip down enough that water spilled over the top wall of the next bulkhead in line. This caused a domino effect. The bow dipped further down, allowing the next bulkhead to be breached, and so on. In retrospect, it was hubris that did Titanic in. From the financiers who didn't see the need for high-grade steel in the bulkheads, down to the very passengers themselves, who simply couldn't believe their world could be so easily crushed by nature's caprice. But it was I who sinned most egregiously. In the end, I was charged with navigating Titanic from Southampton to New York. But the sea was so calm, the air so clear, the atmosphere on board so very charged with excitement. There was a singular, palpable glee infecting us all alike, from the reclining elite on the upper decks to the suited, sweaty firemen toiling in the bows. We were all taking part in history. We were the envy of the rest of the world. Hubris. We never stood a chance.